In an unprecedented move that has sent shockwaves across the international community, Scotland Yard has reportedly issued an arrest warrant for Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young military leader who seized power in Burkina Faso through a coup in September 2022. This development marks one of the most significant international legal challenges faced by an African leader in recent years, raising critical questions about sovereignty, international law, and the complex web of global politics. Welcome to Voice of Africa. The 34-year-old captain, who became the world's youngest head of state following his military takeover, now finds himself at the center of an international legal storm. Sources close to the Metropolitan Police Service suggest that the warrant stems from allegations related to human rights violations and potential war crimes committed during his rise to power and subsequent governance of the West African nation. This shocking development comes at a time when Traoré had been positioning himself as a champion of Pan-African independence and anti-colonial resistance. His rhetoric against Western influence in Africa, particularly his criticism of France's military presence in the Sahel region, has made him a controversial figure on the international stage. The timing of this arrest warrant has raised eyebrows among political analysts who question whether this is a genuine legal pursuit or a politically motivated move to silence one of Africa's most vocal critics of Western intervention. The warrant allegedly centers on incidents that occurred during the violent period following Traoré's coup against Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba in September 2022. Intelligence reports suggest that Scotland Yard has been investigating claims of extrajudicial killings, arbitrary detentions, and suppression of political opposition that allegedly took place under Traoré's command. These accusations, if proven true, could constitute serious violations of international humanitarian law. What makes this case particularly complex is the jurisdictional challenge it presents. Burkina Faso is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, which established the International Criminal Court, and the country has consistently maintained that any legal proceedings against its leadership should be conducted within its own judicial system. The involvement of Scotland Yard suggests that the warrant may be related to universal jurisdiction principles, which allows certain serious crimes to be prosecuted anywhere in the world, regardless of where they were committed. The international community's response has been mixed and revealing. While Western nations have remained conspicuously silent about the warrant, many African Union member states have expressed concern about what they perceive as continued neo-colonial interference in African affairs. Nigeria's presidency issued a statement calling the warrant a dangerous precedent that undermines African sovereignty, while South Africa's ruling party described it as yet another attempt to destabilize progressive African leadership. Traoré's supporters argue that he has been targeted because of his firm stance against Western exploitation of Burkina Faso's natural resources, particularly gold mining operations that have historically benefited foreign corporations more than local communities. Since taking power, he has implemented policies aimed at increasing state control over mining revenues and has expelled French military forces from the country, moves that have been celebrated by many young Africans but have strained relationships with traditional Western allies. The economic implications of this warrant cannot be understated. Burkina Faso, despite being one of the world's largest gold producers, remains one of the poorest countries globally. Traoré's administration has been working to renegotiate mining contracts and increase local participation in the extractive industries. This arrest warrant could potentially freeze international assets and complicate ongoing negotiations with international financial institutions. From a legal perspective, the warrant presents numerous challenges. International law experts point out that serving an arrest warrant on a sitting head of state raises complex questions about diplomatic immunity and state sovereignty. Even if the warrant is legitimate, executing it would require Traoré to travel to a jurisdiction where British authorities could detain him, effectively limiting his international mobility and diplomatic activities. The warrant has also highlighted the broader debate about accountability versus sovereignty in international relations. Critics argue that Western legal systems are being weaponized to pursue political objectives against African leaders who challenge the status quo. They point to the selective nature of international justice, noting that leaders from more powerful nations rarely face similar scrutiny despite allegations of similar or worse violations. However, human rights organizations have welcomed the development, arguing that no leader should be above the law, regardless of their political rhetoric or geographical location. They maintain that if credible evidence exists of serious crimes, international legal mechanisms must be utilized to ensure accountability and justice for victims. The situation has placed Traore in an increasingly isolated position internationally, even as his domestic popularity appears to remain strong among many Burkinabe citizens who view him as standing up to foreign interference. His administration has dismissed the warrant as colonial justice and has vowed to resist any attempts at extradition. As this story continues to unfold, it represents a critical test case for international law, African sovereignty, and the ongoing struggle between traditional power structures and emerging African leadership. The coming weeks will likely see intense diplomatic activity as various stakeholders attempt to navigate this unprecedented situation. The implications extend far beyond Burkina Faso's borders, potentially affecting relationships between Africa and the West for years to come. Whether this warrant represents genuine pursuit of justice or political persecution may ultimately depend on one's perspective on international law, sovereignty, and the complex legacy of colonialism in Africa. This developing story continues to evolve, and its resolution will undoubtedly have lasting implications for international relations and the future of African leadership on the global stage. The ripple effects of this arrest warrant are already being felt across the Sahel region, where Traore has emerged as a leading voice in the alliance of Sahel states, alongside military leaders from Mali and Niger. These three nations have formed an unprecedented coalition, withdrawing from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and establishing closer ties with Russia and China as alternatives to traditional Western partnerships. Intelligence sources suggest that the timing of the warrant may be strategically linked to upcoming negotiations between Sahel states and international mining corporations. Traore's government has been preparing to announce major reforms in the gold mining sector, potentially nationalizing several foreign-owned operations. The arrest warrant could serve as leverage in these high-stakes negotiations, effectively putting pressure on his administration to moderate their positions. The warrant has also sparked widespread protests across Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, with thousands of young people taking to the streets in solidarity with their leader. Social media campaigns using hashtags like #HandSoftRare and #AfricanSovereignty have gained international traction, particularly among diaspora communities in Europe and North America. Regional security experts warn that this legal challenge could further destabilize an already volatile region. With ongoing insurgency from extremist groups and increasing foreign military interventions, the arrest warrant adds another layer of complexity to the Sahel security architecture. Some analysts fear that isolating Traore could push Burkina Faso closer to non-Western allies, potentially altering the geopolitical balance in West Africa for decades to come. As diplomatic channels work overtime to address this unprecedented situation, the international community watches closely. The outcome of this legal confrontation may well determine whether international law serves as a tool for justice or becomes perceived as an instrument of political control in the post-colonial era.